All right, guys, we're back. A little bit of more of a discussion video today. Not really any playing or fuzz mods or wah-wah mods, but I wanted to talk about something. To me, this is, as the title says, the biggest thing that Stevie Ray Vaughan learned from Jimi Hendrix. You know, let's touch on the obvious. We all know the story. We've read the story. Jimmy Vaughan, who is an extremely influential guitar player, as a young lad, found a record. Jimmy presumably thought it was Purple Haze, brought it home. Younger brother heard it and flipped out, you know, as we all did. I mean, I know I went crazy when I heard Jimi Hendrix, and I was really, really young, and I've always had an admiration for Jimi Hendrix, even when I didn't play guitar. He's just that influential to me. Some people their opinions may differ, but I feel he's the greatest guitar player that ever lived. Definitely of another world, and definitely connected to something greater. Just connected to a higher power, man. An open channel for the universe. He was able to relay it with his guitar, with his music, with his message. So, you know, like I said, touching on the obvious. First of all, I mean, we've seen early photos of Stevie, and he was inspired, his physical presence, you know, the way he would dress, and you know, some of the onstage antics, you know, paying homage especially to Jimmy with some of the theatrics, playing behind the head, you know, playing with his teeth. And like I said, mostly the dress. I mean, he kind of changed his stage persona and kind of became Stevie Ray Vaughan when he, you know, when he started dressing differently. Maybe the hat, maybe it was the kimono, maybe it was just getting funky. His left-handed tremolo arm, that was really, really cool too, as a big nod to Jimmy, being able to favor the arm up high. It's a cool trick and a cool touch, you know, to the guitar. And we all know the custom sticker on #1, and it had blood and sweat into it, and pride, and he was a proud to pay homage. One of the things to me as a player and as somebody who really, I really do listen quite a bit, I don't hear similarities in the playing style. Take something like Vibrato. Stevie's vibrato is very distinct. He had a very slow, kind of wide vibrato, and Jimmy's was really, it was melodic, but he had a real stinging Buddy Guy kind of characteristic, which is somebody that Jimi Hendrix was listening to. And you know, so I think their vibratos were different. I think their playing styles were different. Really, really different if you pay close attention to it. And this is where that big important lesson comes in. I think in Hendrix's playing, you hear a little bit of Muddy Waters. You hear a little bit of Elmore James. You hear quite a bit of B.B. King, whether you can, you know, pick it out or not. You hear a lot of Buddy Guy. You hear a lot of Curtis Mayfield, and you hear a lot of Ike Turner. You hear a lot of whatever was inspiring Jimmy. And I think that Jimmy took all of his inspiration and created the Jimi Hendrix sound, the Jimi Hendrix tone, the Jimi Hendrix style. Jimi Hendrix didn't go and try to cop somebody doing Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix took all of his influences and became his own entity and created his own voice in his music. And that is the biggest lesson, I feel, is what Stevie heard. Stevie was hearing his favorites. Stevie was hearing Albert King and Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy and all of those players that Stevie was getting off on, and he was hearing it through this new vessel of Jimi Hendrix to him at that age, at a young age. He was hearing a modern version of Manish Boy. He was hearing a modern version of Sweet Little Angel in Red House. When he was introduced to Jimmy, he was hearing a fresh take on something that he was already digging on. So I think the lesson there was Stevie could hear his influences in this guy. And on top of it, this guy had his own thing. He was wild. He was dive bombing. He was playing with a fuzz. He was just playing every inch of the guitar, from the tuners down to the saddles. He was all over the place. And that's the message. That's really the biggest thing you can learn from somebody is, you know, to me, Stevie Ray Vaughan never tried to, on his recordings and playing live, he didn't try to go get every single pedal or every single amp, or Stevie just took what moved him. He took his inspiration and he went out with his non-large headstock Strat through a couple of his Fender amps and turned them up and did his best interpretation of what Jimmy did to inspire him. And I say interpretation because if you look at songs like Voodoo Child that Stevie covered, Little Wing, and the Earl King classic Come On that both Hendrix and Stevie went to do later on, Stevie kind of changed the structure of the songs a little bit, and he just did it his way. And it was just a nod, a tip of the hat to say, hey man, this is what inspired me. That's one of the biggest lessons a guitar player can take, especially if you're turned on by somebody. Especially if you're really influenced. I was just watching an interview with David Bowie. And David Bowie said his idol, his biggest influence was Little Richard. And now I'm thinking, Ziggy Stardust just said that Little Richard was his biggest influence. So he took everything he was influenced by but became David Bowie. The same thing with Stevie. Stevie took everything he was influenced by and became Stevie Ray Vaughan. He mixed it all up in this pot, blended it all together, and out came Stevie Ray Vaughan. Same thing with Hendrix. He saw Hendrix. He could hear a little snippet of Buddy Guy and Hendrix was playing. He could hear a snippet of Muddy Waters. He could hear B.B. King. He could hear Albert King. And even some early Albert Collins. He could hear all of those things. The Elmore James stuff. He could hear it. And that's where Stevie took a lesson from Jimmy and said, all right, I see what you did. You took everybody who ever moved you or inspired you and smashed it all in, and out came Jimi Hendrix. So Stevie went and did the same. If you listen to Stevie's playing, you hear B.B. King, you hear Albert King, you hear Buddy Guy, you hear a lot of Wes Montgomery. But you never hear Stevie trying to nail a Hendrix lick note for note. You never hear Stevie trying to nail a Hendrix tone. And I think that later on, that stuff comes to you more natural when you absorb it, when you take it in, when you process it, and you hold on to that inspiration in here, and you go out and do it your own way. Some of those sounds came to Stevie in a different way. He would do a pinch harmonic thing with the pick, and that was his way of getting an Octavia sound. He didn't have an Octavia pedal in those early, 85, 86. He didn't have an Octavia pedal down on the board, but he was finding a way to get that approach. He used a Leslie speaker on stage for maybe a little bit of a univibe type feel, a little bit of a univibe characteristic. It wasn't exactly perfect, but it was his way of saying, I'm going to use what I got and use my inspiration. And then down the line, we know that Stevie would have a univibe on. Towards the end, Stevie was using fuzz face pedals and Octavia pedals, and Stevie is seen with a Marshall Major, which is really a clean 200 watt PA. It doesn't really react the way a super lead does or a super bass does. It's just an ultra clean machine, and it'll rattle your teeth out of your mouth. But again, where Jimmy was going for these large fuzz tones, Stevie favored the cleaner side. It wasn't like he was trying to copy the guys that influenced him. He was trying to get inspiration and give you his own voice, give you his own interpretation of what he got off on. So to me, that's what I took from it. I really feel as though that the biggest lesson Stevie got from Jimi Hendrix and all of his heroes was to learn this stuff, feel it, be inspired by it, and, put your own stink on it, put your own funk on it, and turn it into your own in a way. It's something I really want to try to do. I really want to try to find my own voice musically. I can totally stand by the fact and say I have been victim to trying to copy a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. There's no point in it. The great Doyle Bramhall, who was influenced by everybody and created his own voice with a Strat and a couple of amps. I watched an interview with him, and he said, why would you do that? Well, there's only going to be one of those guys. There's only going to be one Jimi Hendrix. There's only going to be one Stevie Ray Vaughan. There's only going to be one of those guys that can do what they did. So why even try? Do your own thing. And I mean, from somebody like Doyle, who is so unique, that's a perfect example. I mean, Doyle was practically raised by the Vaughans. And, in the beginning, in his younger years, Doyle was... I have some bootleg audio of Doyle playing with Stevie, and it's just amazing how close, how uncanny the playing is, because Doyle looked up to him, but eventually Doyle, like many players, realized that I have a voice as well, and they went on and found their own voice. And that's just something that I really want to try to do with my own self, my own playing a different guitar. That's why as of late I've been, really favoring other guitars, because it allows you to experiment more. It allows you to find different sounds, and it makes you play differently, and it kind of gets you away from the normalcy and the things you're comfortable with. Somebody had told me a while ago, learn it. Learn the stuff that inspires you and then forget it and move on from it. And that was a big help, because as soon as you stop trying to recreate every single thing, and as soon as you just say, to hell with it, I'm going to play guitar, some of that stuff comes out a little better, and some of that stuff comes out on its own, and it's meant to happen. It's sporadic, and it's not rehearsed. It's just from the heart and from the feeling, instead of overthinking it. So that's something that I'm going to do. I'm going to focus on doing that. Someday, somehow, I hope we can all find our own voice on the guitar. It may seem hard, because you can say everybody's done it, but it's like a fingerprint, whether it's vibrato, whether it's singing, whether it's vocal or melodic lines, solo playing, lead playing, rhythm playing. We all have our own voice, and there's enough strings and positions on here where we can find it. I'm really looking forward to finding my own voice. Well, maybe there's two things that I feel Stevie picked up on. One, E flat. This can really give you a rich, full, dynamic tone. And, obviously Jimmy was doing this. And I think that eventually Stevie found that it would help his singing, and not only that, give him a dynamic tone. Also, the rhythm and lead playing. The thumbed major chord is such a big help with that. So think about, instead of playing your major chord here like this, okay, Jimmy would play it like this. So it left so as your thumb, you have all those, you have your appendages, your fingers available to kind of whack little notes and get in there and kind of just trill on something. So those are probably two things. But as far as playing, I mean, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you checking out this video. If you can, please like, subscribe if you haven't. I got some really, really cool Hendrix related stuff coming up, since this video maybe can segue into something else. I just want to keep growing. I want to keep helping everybody, whether it be pedal mods, pedal repair, or lick lessons, whatever I can do. Just trying to do better, trying to get the channel better, and trying to provide good content. So I appreciate all you guys, and remember, the biggest lesson: find your own voice. That's what all of our heroes have done. There's a reason why our heroes aren't clones of somebody else, because they took all of their inspiration and they found it. I just hope we can all find it. We'll talk soon, guys. Be good to each other. Peace.